Hi, this is Lorene, and I've been guided to create another video. If you'll give me a minute to clear, center, and balance my energy, we'll get started. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the aquifer. So last week I talked about the vision I had right before I started the video, and I only had that short or quick vision of me walking into that space with this vegetation hanging down, which I now would describe as kelp forests. So I pushed aside this kelp and walked into this open space. It was huge, like a cavern, and it was and then I saw this bright light shining, and that was pretty much all. I didn't see anything else. I just walked through the vegetation, and as I opened the kelp to walk through, there was just really bright light shining, and I couldn't identify the light source. But when I was editing the video, I started getting more information, and what came in was that it was an aquifer, which is an underground water source, river, lake, whatever you want to refer to it. But the way I saw it, it was a egg-shaped space in the earth that was filled with water, and that's why the kelp was hanging down from the ceiling of this huge cavern, because it was filled with water, and there was life in this water, so at least vegetation, and so it was growing from the ceiling down to further down into the space. And then as more information was coming in, I was reminded of the raptors. And so back in 2020, I started getting a lot of information about the raptors, and then later about Gladiola and her people. The raptors live in the inner earth, and Gladiola and her people are beings who live in our natural bodies of water. And one of the things that came in about the raptors was that in the beginning of this, I don't know what to call it, phase or transition, where there was a lot of trafficking happening, specifically related to children, they tried to save or help some children. And so they have a community of humans that they brought into the inner earth, into their space as children, trying to protect, save, help them, and in the beginning, and then they realized that this was the surface human's journey. This was something we had to work through. Whatever was going on, light or dark, whatever was happening, they couldn't help us, and they couldn't change anything. But they did have this group of children that they had already brought into the inner earth. And yes, there was an adjustment period, excuse me, but they learned to adapt, the children and the raptors, and they do have their own space, although they're not segregated. One of the things that came through was that the raptor children were much more formidable. Meaning their skin, their texture, was much more durable than human children. We are very fragile, and I've said that before. Our skin is very fragile. Our bodies are very fragile, especially compared to a reptile. And so the way they interacted had to be moderated or monitored and moderated, so to keep the children safe, but still they have a strong bond and a strong interaction. In addition, the reptiles, the raptors, tend to evolve quicker. Their brains develop quicker. Humans have a longer growth and development period for a purpose. We're different, so we evolve and grow differently. But nevertheless, that was also part of the reason why the human children had to be separated and monitored as they grew. But that being said, one of the things that they did to help our children, because they were very traumatized, was they had these healing spaces. And so I had very strong visions of walking through, I want to say a hall, but it was like a cave, because it was a hall the shape of a cave. And it was I don't want to say it was long, because I feel like it would imply that it went on forever, but it was probably 30 feet minimum. And then within the sides of the walls, there were these alcoves that were cut in. And I don't know if they were cut in or if they were natural, but they were, excuse me, but there were these dark, like, cuts in the wall, or caves in the wall. Maybe dens would be a good way to refer to them, where there were people lying, and it was I called it a healing space. That's how it was described to me, as a healing space. And so when I was communicating with the raptors, there was a gentleman who referred to himself as my friend, and he would be a politician, a leader within the raptor community. And so he was the one who was explaining this to me. And so our children, they put our children in those spaces to heal them from all the trauma that they had suffered, because they were described as being extremely traumatized, severely traumatized. And so they have grown up in that space. The other thing that came in is that those children really don't want to come back up to the surface. They would rather stay where they are, which is okay, but they will be at some point reintroduced to humans when they're ready, and very specific humans. That being said, the reason why I'm explaining that is because as soon as more information came in, it was very clear that this space that was once filled with water was drained to become a healing space. It's meant to be a healing space for humanity, and it's huge. I don't have the words to describe how big it is, because I don't have that scope or the language. I just wouldn't even be able to describe it. It's bigger than a football field. And it's massive, and it's the shape of an egg. At first I thought Gladiola and their people had opened up this space for us, since that is their medium. Water is their medium that they work through and with. And so that was the first thought that came into my head, but then it was quickly corrected. It was the beings in the heart of Mother Earth. So I always refer to them as earth, air, water, fire, and then as well as ether. That all of that together, all of that energy, all of those elements together create the consciousness of Mother Earth. And this is just new information that has come into me. It's really important to understand that I get waves of information, and I integrate that information, expand and grow, and then I get more information that is explained to me in a way that I can comprehend and integrate into the information I already have. So what I know and understand or understood 10 years ago is different than what I know and understand today, although the foundation is the same. But because they can't give me all the information at once, because it's too much, it would be overwhelming, I'm given waves or layers of information, and as I grow and integrate all the information that's coming in, I'm given more information. So these consciousnesses together create, as a whole, they're like fractals of Mother Earth. As a whole, they are the consciousness of Mother Earth. So it was Mother Earth who opened up this space for us for healing, and this is for surface humans, okay? Now, as far as how that works, do we have to go into that space to heal it? To heal, I feel like the space was filled with water. It was completely enclosed. It was filled with water to prevent anything or anyone from getting into that space to taint it. And the metaphor of opening it up, releasing the water from that space, is the literal moving of the water, and the metaphorical moving of the water is to indicate that healing that it offers us. So where is that water going, right? That water is pristine and it's moving into a space to heal, okay? And as it does that, that open space in the earth is an open space for us to heal. So the energy being projected from that space is healing, as well as the water that's being released from that space. And that's what's come in really strong this week, and really strong right after I finished that video. It's a gift. That's what's also that came through. It's a gift. The other thing that came in very strong was about timelines, cycles, completing cycles. And I did do like a playlist of time as a construct, and I'll put that in the description. But this morning I woke up really early and I watched the video. And this is not my area of expertise, but when I was watching it, I had all this information come in that it confirmed a lot of things I understood intuitively and spiritually. And so one of the things I discussed in that playlist is the double slit experiment. And for me, I went to a I don't know what to call it, like a conference or something, a gathering where all these people were learning how to manifest. So it was a really famous person or collective that talks to people, that channels through this one lady about manifesting and how to manifest. And I went to that and it did not resonate with me at all. I was actually, it was very off-putting for me. So I let it go. I'm not judging anybody who participates, but it was not for me. So I got really interested, or I kind of went down the rabbit hole of quantum physics and quantum consciousness, and I read Michio Kaku's book, Hyperspace, and I did a whole lot of my own research, and learned about the double slit experiment, and that experiment in a nutshell. If you watch the videos, I talk about this stuff more in depth, but I just want to talk about the epiphanies I had today. But just as background, the double slit experiment is about how particles move, and when they are unobserved, there is a scattered pattern. So they would project these particles through these slits from one side of the wall to another side of the wall. And when there was nobody observing, they were just a scattered pattern across on this wall going, random. We'll call it a random pattern, or random placement. But when they put a camera to observe which slit the particles were going through, it created a pattern. So when someone observed the particles, the behavior changed. Okay, And so to me, that was a very strong indication of manifesting. So as I observe the world that I live in, I have at its foundation an effect on what manifests, on what's created, or what occurs. Schrodinger's cat equation also discusses that. So the cat is in a box, and the cat can exist in any number of ways, and we'll just say live or dead. And we don't know if that cat's alive or dead until we lift the box. But it's not until we lift the box and observe the cat that it's either alive or dead, right? So all possibilities exist until we lift the box, right? And so to me, if a conscious mind is determining whether that cat is alive or dead, then our conscious mind has control over the reality that we perceive, that we exist in or create, however you want to look at it. And so I feel like in this realm of the quantum realm, spirituality and science kind of comes together in a way. But what was super exciting for me is when this physicist was talking about how the particle moves. When the particle moves from point A to point B, he said it blinks. It blinks as it goes from one point to another, where actually it doesn't travel through, it doesn't travel. And so I'm going to put the link to this video in the description. But what I really wanted to talk about is, he said, what happens between point A and point B? And that's what I wanted to touch on, because that goes to me, it goes to timelines and cycles of time. So let me read this. I'm just going to read this because I can't wing it and explain it clearly. I don't have that type of, like I said, foundation. So he talks about in his lectures on quantum electrodynamics, he describes how photon gets from point A to point B. And the honest picture, the quantum mechanically correct picture is this. The photon doesn't just go in a straight line. It goes along every possible path, every single possible path from A to B simultaneously, through completely wrong paths, curved paths, zigzag paths, paths that go out to Jupiter and come back. All of them, each path contributes a little arrow, an amplitude, and you add up all the arrows. So arrow, when I had to look up what arrow meant, and arrow is something that was really complex, and so he refers to it as an arrow. But the way I look at it, as a direction. Okay, just a simple explanation. I look at what he says the word arrow, I think of it as a direction, pointing in a direction. Most of them cancel each other out. He's talking about the arrows. Cancel each other out because nearby paths point in random directions and they average to 0. But the path near the classical straight line path, near the path of minimum time, those don't cancel. Those arrows happen to all point roughly in the same direction. So they add up to give a big total contribution. And the result is that the photon overwhelmingly behaves as if it were in a straight line, because that's where all the contributions add together without canceling. This is called the path integral formulation, and it tells you something profound. The classical picture, light goes in a straight line, isn't a rule that follows. It's the emergent result of quantum mechanics, where all the wild quantum paths cancel and only the classical path survives. The law of reflection, the law of refraction, the straight line propagation of light, all of it comes out of this. Light going in a straight line is not a fundamental law. It's what happens when you add up all the arrows. So for me, this was profound. So to me, I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow. So when a particle moves from point A to point B, it moves in every possible pathway between A and B. Every single one. So to me, that represented timelines, right? Timelines, or what we consider timelines. I call it possible realities. So I consider it possible realities. Anything that could possibly happen between point A and point B is what divinity, the creator of all things, considers as we move through that space. And so he talks about arrows, all the random scattered arrows cancel out because they're just to me, too extraneous. But it's the patterns or the arrows that mostly align that manifest or create a straight, what we would call a straight line. And so I was asked a question about this on an AI, and I said, is this like deconstructive and constructive interference, where the extraneous pathways or the extraneous arrows would be deconstructing, and the arrows that are aligning are constructive, so they're stronger, they're manifesting stronger. And the AI said that's a good metaphor. So that's one of the ways I was kind of trying to make sense of this information that was coming in. But also, when I did the video on constructs of time, let me see which one of these. I talked about, I'll do picture in picture of these too, but I talked about, sorry, it's so hard with this light. I can't really show you this. So what this is right here, this is birth to present. And so this straight line right here, this one line is the reality that I manifested. Those are all the arrows aligning up, right? From now to the future, this straight line, I call it my path and purpose. That's the path I should walk. The straight line is the path I should walk. But all this red line, the black line, the red line, purple line, black line, all these lines represent all the possible realities that I can take, all the possible paths I can take. The divine intends for me to take this one line, but I have free will. I can choose anything I want, and I can go in any direction I choose. So when he's talking about the photon doesn't just go straight. Okay, sorry, I'm like getting a little excited. The photon doesn't go in a straight line. It goes along every possible path, every single possible path from A to B simultaneously, through completely wrong paths, curved paths, zigzag paths, paths that go out to Jupiter and come back. I can't tell you how many wrong paths I've taken, but you know, this is life. This is experience, right? And so that's what I was super excited when I was listening to that, because to me it validated what I felt and knew intuitively about reality, how we manifest reality, and possible realities. And so the other thing was, he said that each path contributes a little arrow, an amplitude, and you add up all the arrows. Most of them cancel each other out because nearby paths point in random directions and they average zero, right? And so right now we are going through a convergence. And the other, let's see. And so people call them timelines, I call them possible realities. But as we get to the end of the cycle, all of those possible realities or timelines or arrows are converging. Okay, so this happens in each moment, with each thought, but time doesn't truly exist. All time is happening simultaneously. So it also happens in our perceived timelines. So right now we're completing like a 10 or 12,000 year cycle, a huge cycle. But I'm also completing my day, right? I'm ending my day. So I have that little cycle of my day, and I have the huge cycle of this 12,000 year cycle in which I've lived many lifetimes, right? But right now, as this cycle ends, the timelines or the possible realities are all converging. And all the events that did not manifest anything worthy based on the divine consciousness, if it didn't manifest anything worthy that helped it grow and become better, all those realities are collapsing. All those possible realities are collapsing. So I have here all these timelines, which you can't see very well. I'll do the picture-in-picture timelines, but then all these cycles are occurring, are coming to an end. Okay, whether it's the day, whether it's the year, whether it's 10,000 years. And so you might not be as excited as I am, but I was extraordinarily excited when I was watching that video, because it really solidified and validated what I knew to be true. So those arrows zeroing out and canceling each other, that's what's happening with the timelines right now. If you submit to the timeline paradigm, or are living from that place, right now all those extraneous timelines are collapsing, and the reality that we're living in right now is what's manifesting. We're ending a cycle. We're ending a cycle. And one of the reasons why I don't really care too much for timelines or this idea of timelines, because I feel like people use it like you're switching a lane. Okay, oh, I'm not in this timeline anymore, I'm moving to this timeline. And that's just not how it happens. We are experiencing this reality through our consciousness. Every moment, we're not switching to a different reality. We're switching to a different perspective. We're switching to how we see our existence and our world around us. That's what's shifting, our perception of it, not the world itself, not the path we're on. The path we're on is constant. It's not even about life and death. It's about the evolution of our consciousness, our awareness, our existence. Okay, so to me, I was so excited because I had this strong feeling of reconciliation between science and spirituality. I felt validated in information that's come into me intuitively, not from any extraneous source. So I felt when I was watching this gentleman speak that even though we speak completely different languages, that he was truly validating what I know to be true and what I learned intuitively through my connection with the divine consciousness. And so the final thing I wanted to say was something that came in just before I started recording. And I've said this before, the universe isn't a product of science. Science is a product of the universe. Science is something that is one of many disciplines that we have, and constructs that we've created to help us understand what this existence is, who we are and why we're here, right? We have science, we have philosophy, we have religion, spirituality, we have psychology, sociology, anthropology. We have so many disciplines that we study that we utilize to help us understand who we are and what we're here for, where we've been, where we are, where we're going, what we're meant to do. You know, archaeology's coming in right now also. Even we study so many different things. And so remember, all these things were created by the divine consciousness to help us on our journey understand our place. But truly, truly, what shows us, teaches us, informs us on who we are and where we're meant to be, comes from our consciousness. It comes solely from our consciousness, our awareness, and our expansion of that consciousness. Because as we grow and expand, I'll say it again, as we grow and expand and evolve, we walk towards unity. We walk towards wholeness and oneness, and we walk towards remembering and becoming who we truly are. And we are all, each of us, divine, whole, and one. Okay, if you give me a minute, let me see if anything else comes in. No, I think that's it. It was a pretty hard stop there, so I think my guides and the divine were very happy with that. And I am too. I can't even tell you. I feel so like empowered right now, and I feel so incredibly elated with that information that came in today. So anyway, thank you.